Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. The hostage crisis, that's the subject of tonight's Waters Words. You can only hide incompetence for so long. Biden's done a good job of it. He hid when he was in the Senate. He hid as VP. He hid during the campaign because of COVID. But when he became president, he wasn't able to hide anymore. And look what happened. First, he killed vaccine confidence with the J&J pause. Look at the chart, falls right off a cliff. Then he killed the border, and now Afghanistan. We saw it coming. The guy botched the Iraq withdrawal, let ISIS take over. His administration stranded Americans in Benghazi, remember that, left them for dead. Now Joe Biden stranded thousands of Americans in a war zone behind enemy lines, and the only way out is the airport, which is surrounded by the enemy. An enemy that's committing atrocities on live TV for the whole world to see. In July, the president claimed this wouldn't happen.
Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not.
Why?
Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan.
But the images look exactly the same. Mad scramble out of town. People clinging to wings. Total chaos. Thousands of Americans left in a war zone. Billions of dollars of military equipment just left behind for the terrorists to take. Black Hawk, drones, planes, grenade launchers, night vision goggles, Humvees. It's a war chest, all in the Taliban's hands. But Joe said there were no mistakes.
So you don't think this could have been handled, this actually could have been handled better in any way? No mistakes?
No, I don't think it could have been handled in a way that we're going to go back in hindsight and look, but the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens.
It's so bad even CNN can't spin it.
It is just an absolute mess. And we heard President Biden say yesterday in his comments to ABC News that this is not a failure. And I think a lot of people outside that airport, particularly those taking the kinds of extreme actions we're just talking about, would like to know, if this isn't failure, what does failure look like exactly?
Joe Biden created a kill zone at the airport. Every single person that wants to leave has to funnel through the same route, a route controlled by the enemy. Afghans are getting beaten, killed, or kidnapped. Americans are being blocked or shaken down. Our people are having to bribe terrorists just to get out. It's a hostage crisis. And planes are half empty because of Taliban roadblocks. On Friday, 8 hours, no planes took off. The Biden administration doesn't even know who's inside the country.
How many American citizens remain in Afghanistan?
I don't know. 10,000, 15,000 Americans stranded behind enemy lines. Can we get them past the Taliban to the airport?
We don't have the capability to go out and collect up large numbers of people.
Joe Biden said he planned for this. I'd hate to see what winging it looks like. The State Department sent out a memo to all Americans saying they couldn't guarantee safe travel to the airport. So let's check in and see what's happening at the airport now. Does the commander-in-chief have any idea how dangerous this is?
Still a lot of pandemonium outside the airport.
Well, there is, but look, but no one's being killed right now. God forgive me if I'm wrong about that, but no one's being killed right now.
Wrong. Nearly 20 people have been killed by Taliban coming to the airport. The president's lost touch with reality. He gave a hard withdrawal date, September 11th, and he pulled out the troops before he pulled out Americans, Afghan partners, and all of our military gear. It was a massive mistake. And the minute he set a hard date in April with no conditions, the Taliban advance began. The next thing Biden did could cost him this presidency. Biden was briefed on the Taliban advance. He was warned the Afghan army was deserting. The Wall Street Journal reports in July, quote, The administration had been warned by its own officials on the ground that the Taliban's advance was imminent and Afghanistan's military may be unable to stop it. An internal State Department memo last month warned top agencies officials of the potential collapse of Kabul, rapid territorial gains by the Taliban, and subsequent collapse of the Afghan security forces, and actually offered recommendations on ways to mitigate the crisis and speed up the evacuation, unquote. The New York Times, quote, intelligence warned of Afghan military collapse. Despite Biden's assurances, classified assessments by American spy agencies over the summer painted an increasingly grim picture of the prospect of a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan and warned of the rapid collapse of the Afghan military, even as President Biden and his advisors said publicly that that was unlikely to happen as quickly, according to all these people. So, Biden was briefed on the collapse of the Afghan army and a quick Taliban takeover, and he did nothing about it. In fact, he went on TV and lied to us, saying the Afghan army could hold and a quick Taliban takeover was unlikely. He pulled air support, he pulled ground support, and watched the Afghan army get bribed and surrender. Now we're stuck with the Taliban as our travel agents. Hey, Mohammed, can you get me to the airport? Oh, that'll be $20K? Okay. So the question is this. Did the commander-in-chief lie to the American people, strand thousands of Americans behind enemy lines, and abandon billions of dollars of lethal military equipment just to get a political photo op to pull out on the 20th anniversary of 9/11? Republicans, when they take back the House, they're going to have to decide, is this an impeachable offense? This Afghan hostage crisis is going to dominate the news cycle until every single American is safely evacuated. This was the man that was supposed to be an experienced Washington guy. He knew how to pull the levers of power, listen to his intel people, hug our alliances. And in one single weekend, it's all shattered. Who's going to trust Joe now? Oh, Joe's going to crack down on illegal gun trafficking in America? He just armed the Taliban. Oh, Joe, you're going to ask for billions for the Green New Deal? Really? How did the billions work out training that Afghan army? Let's take a look at the Afghan army training. What a colossal waste of money. Last couple months, we heard about the threat from MAGA grandmas, remember? The threat of white supremacy here? No. We missed the real threats. Pay attention. Imagine having 20 years to plan for something and screwing it up this badly. The Pentagon priorities are shot. Biden, the State Department, lost. Iran continues to nuke up. Russia may move on Ukraine. And China just held assault exercises near Taiwan. When are we going to get that lab leak report anyway? Are they just going to bury that too? The president just asked OPEC to increase oil production because of these high gas prices here. OPEC said, no, Joe. The president just asked Putin for Central Asian basing rights to keep an eye on the Taliban. Putin said, no, Joe. During the ABC interview, Biden couldn't remember where his late son served and forgot we still had forces in Syria. He thinks his Afghan exit couldn't have gone any better. Something's not right with this president. He didn't speak to a single NATO ally when he was bungling the withdrawal. Our allies are furious. The president isn't feared or respected. Democrats here at home, silent. They won't defend him. The Biden presidency is teetering on the brink of collapse. A prolonged hostage crisis in Afghanistan will bleed them dry. If U.S. soldiers take casualties defending the airport, or if the Taliban kills an American civilian, it's over for Joe Biden. This is a fluid situation with serious consequences for this administration and for the homeland. And as always, Waters World will bring you the truth. Joining me now, host of Tucker Carlson Tonight and author of the new book, The Long Slide, Tucker Carlson. And we'll get to the book in a second. But Tucker, I think it's clear we're watching the slow collapse of the Biden presidency. He cannot function as a commander-in-chief, but we're also witnessing, I believe, the collapse of the smart set. And after 20 years, very well-groomed politicians and diplomats, what have they given us besides humiliation, a hostage crisis, and a bill for about $1 trillion?
They're not good at their jobs. I mean, ultimately, that is the crime. It's not just that their ideas are bad, which they are. It's not just that they're self-righteous buffoons. Obviously, that's true, too. It's they're not competent. And the sad and scary thing to think about is these really are the best. It's not just that they're self-righteous buffoons. Obviously, that's true, too. It's they're not competent. And the sad and scary thing to think about is these really are the best we produce. I mean, these are the products of a very specific system in place since the Second World War to find the smartest people in America and bring them up through these various institutions and put them in charge of everything. It's what we used to call the meritocracy. And they have all the merit badges, and they went to Princeton, and they were McKinsey consultants. So the National Security Advisor was a Rhodes Scholar. You know, if they were writers, they would get the Pulitzer Prize with the New York Times bestseller list. Like, they've done everything that the system asked. They've collected all these merit badges. And they're horrible. Like, they have no idea what they're doing, and the results prove it. So it tells you that our system itself, like internally, domestically, the system that we use to train leaders needs a revamp, like immediately.
Yeah, it might just be a lack of street smarts, because the guy they installed fled in a helicopter with cash to another country, and then the army they trained just took a few bribes and surrendered. And now we're in a situation where, you know, obviously we care more about bringing Americans back than we care about Afghan partners that helped us. But clearly Joe Biden can't vet these people. And
well, but can I say one thing?
Sure.
The president of Afghanistan who ran away was a Johns Hopkins professor.
Yeah.
His daughter is a visual artist in Brooklyn. His son was an advisor to the Pete Buttigieg campaign. I mean, he was installed to run Afghanistan because he's exactly like the people running our country. He's from that same world. If they just pick some random warlord with an AK and some knowledge of Afghanistan, it probably wouldn't have fallen, right? Do you see? I mean,
a warlord would have been a better slot than the guy we trained.
Way better. Way better than the Johns Hopkins professor whose son advised Pete Buttigieg. Like, it's an inside deal where they reward each other, but they're all terrible.
Right. And he did what he was trained to do. He ran away with the money. So, so now, Omar, if you ever raise questions about vetting these Afghans that are now going to pour into this country, who knows who they are, if you raise any questions about them, that means you're insecure. Listen to the squad leadership on that. Run it.
And then you've got these crazy people on the right doing, what they always do with their fear mongering and their hateful rhetoric. And I know what some of these people are worried about is that they're worried that refugees like myself, when they come to this country, will outshine them.
Yes, Omar is outshining everybody, Tucker. And that's what we're upset about.
Well, most American citizens haven't married a sibling to game the immigration system. She has. But what's so interesting in that, I mean, it's ridiculous. Obviously, she's a total mediocrity. But notice the contempt that she has for American-born Americans, for the people who are actually from here, who actually built the country that rescued her from a refugee camp in Kenya. She hates them. She has total contempt for them. We're better than you. I'm sorry, honey, you just got here. And you got here because we brought you here because we're nice. You left a country full of people who aren't nice. That's why you left. And you don't like us for that. You're not grateful for that. You hate us for it. And you're gleefully telling us you're going to replace us because we suck? Really? Is that what you're saying? Where did you get these attitudes? You learn them in U.S. colleges, which trains you, like Pete Buttigieg and the president of Afghanistan's son, to hate the country you lead. Like, that's the problem. Our system creates people who hate us. Let's change the system.
Yeah, and they reward those people when they're in power. Now, you have a new book out. I shouldn't even be promoting this. It's just going to knock me further down the New York Times bestseller list. But I'm such a nice guy that I want to talk to you about a story that you wrote about a little while back. You went to Africa with Al Sharpton. Now, I don't think a lot of people know that, but you talk about this in the book. Can you tell the Water's World audience what that trip was like?
Well, basically, it's a piece I wrote for Esquire. I went with Sharpton to stopped the Liberian Civil War one summer when I had a little free time, took time off from hosting a show on CNN, and went with him. Had the best time ever. Really enjoyed Sharpton's company very much. Hard to imagine any of this now. Esquire would never print a story by me. I could never go anywhere with Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton would probably never talk to me now. But that was a time in America where people's politics weren't the most important thing about them. You could talk to them about other things and appreciate people as people. You know, not everything was ideological. And that's kind of what we've lost. I realize this in reading these pieces through again, that I couldn't write most of them now just because the people I covered wouldn't talk to me now. Because politics are all that matters. They define you. They divide us. It's really a sad development. I hope we get past this because, honestly, politics are not the most important thing to me, never have been. I hope they never are.
And that's why we have, I think, Alan Dershowitz screaming at Larry David at the Chillmark store in Martha's Vineyard. They used to be friends, you know, but now they're throwing bagels at each other's heads because of politics. What has this world come to? I just want to see Dershowitz on his rocking chair.
This summer. Exactly.
All right. Tucker Carlson, The Long Slide. Go check it out. And check my book out, too, while you're at it. Buy both. Tucker, thank you.
Definitely. Especially yours. Good to see you, Jesse.
Thank you. Joe Biden continues to lie to the American people on Friday. He's either not telling the truth or he doesn't know what's going on. Here's what he said about a deal we supposedly have with the Taliban.
We have no indication that they haven't been able to get in Kabul through the airport. We've made an agreement with the Taliban thus far. They've allowed them to go through. It's in their interest for them to go through. So we know of no circumstance where American citizens are carrying an American passport are trying to get through to the airport. But we will do whatever needs to be done to see to it they get to the airport.
That's straight up not true. Thousands of Americans are stranded in Afghanistan. We've heard from some of them directly here on Fox.
I got an email from the embassy that says, safely get yourself to the airport so we can get you in. But when I got there, there's thousands of people on the street and crazily walking around. They just open it for us to get in. But there's a lot of people. It's really tough. It's really hard to get in. When I went to the airport, what I saw was all the checkpoints. They were checking. They were not asking, where are you going if you're going to the airport? No. Well, why you guys are going? Where are you guys going? Where are you guys leaving? This country needs you guys. I'm trying to get my family out of here.
Joining me now is Hoover Institution Senior Fellow Victor Davis Hanson. I mean, Victor, I have the New York Post right here, Friday. There's like a half dozen people, stranded Americans, that are in the Post. I had a gun pointed to my chest. The other one, I'm stuck here. I'm a U.S. citizen. I can't get out. I'm shivering. I'm panicking. Joe Biden says he hasn't heard of any Americans that can't get to the airport. Are you serious?
That was the most absurd press conference I've ever heard, Jesse, and it was also dereliction of his own duty. If people heard that in Afghanistan and 10,000 of them came out of hiding and they started to go to the airport, a lot of them would be killed and he'd be responsible for giving them false information. It's entirely absurd, and everybody knows it, that you pull your military out first and you let civilians and their families fend for themselves. It's absurd that you don't coordinate with your NATO allies. It's absurd that you leave $50 billion of top-notch military equipment and you turn Afghanistan into a weapons mart for the next 20 years. And it's absolutely absurd that you tell people they can go to the airport with impunity when they'll be shot or killed or harassed or worse if you take him up on that. He was either